My name is Gbenga, Windapo. That's what I'm known by.
Okay. So you have been an actor, a script writer, and then I think you're mostly known for, writing scripts of various types of various places. So, I mean, I was kind of wondering now what a lot of people veer towards is being on the screen. And writers and producers, mostly they are people behind the scene. So, what got you interested in script writing?
Yeah. First and foremost, I turned out an actor when I made up the decision to study theater arts.
Okay.
My intention was to be an actor,
Okay.
and which I did incredibly well for so many years. I remember my very first year in university. I was the only one selected amongst my classmates that represented the university, our department, at NUTAF. That was the Nigerian University Theatre Arts
Theaters
Festival.
Festival, yes.
Yes. So I was the only one from my level that had the opportunity of attending NUTAF. So I started out as an actor. And even at that, I joined the Bodeshwande Odu Teams Meridian because of my acting prowess. And but it was at Odu Teams Meridian that the love for maybe the beginning of my writing started. Because at the Meridian, then it was a cafe theater,
Okay.
and we were producing plays every weekend. You know, Dr. Bodeshwande, then now Professor Shwande, is the owner of Odu Meridian, and he wanted us to have new plays, to serve our clientele every weekend.
Every weekend.
Every weekend.
That's
It's
interesting.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. We'll be at the Meridian performing. And because he alone couldn't, obviously write all the scripts, so we had to chip in once in a while, a story here or a story there.
Then were you trained then?
I was still in training because I was at the University of Ibadan.
Okay.
Yes, so I was still in training. But even while in training, theoretically, we were getting a practical training from Bodeshwande at his Meridian. So, and that was where it started, as it were. And by the time we finished the first year in university, and we were going to our year two, myself and my friend, my lead friend now, Solomon Iguari, we began the group called Lafomania, which was a comedy
A
group.
comedy group.
Yes.
Okay.
Because of our experience at the Meridian, we now wrote our own scripts. So that was where I can say it started from. Being able to tell your own story. It's one thing to be an actor and act out other people's stories. At that point, you are not telling your perspective of the idea of the story. It's other people. You're just acting them out. But when you're a writer, you can put your ideas right there in front of you for you to now execute.
So, I mean, again, so you started, working with the professor, writing at the same time. That gave you a lot of practical knowledge.
Yes.
But then, were there any kind of financial gain?
Yes, gain. Of course there were gain. But when you are paid 5 naira a week,
In those days.
in those days, that wasn't money, but it was real money as a student. Being able to earn 5 naira was a big deal.
Yeah.
I remember my very first production that I did professionally. I was paid 20 naira.
Wow.
So
that was a lot of money.
That was a lot of money too. Yeah. So if Bodeshwani could afford paying us 5 naira a week, that was something. And of course, it helped, to see one through at the university. And so all thanks to him, because that 5 naira went a long way.
So the kind of training you had as a writer was stage plays.
Stage. Yes, stage.
So then how did you transit to writing for for TV, I think, at first?
Yes.
Then for film?
Well, it's let me say, some will say it will come natural. No, it doesn't come natural. Because the stage is a different medium.
Yes.
the TV is a different one,
Yeah.
and the film is also a different one.
Yeah.
Right? They're very different.
Yeah.
But in the Nigerian space where you must be a jack of all trades and a
Trades.
master of all the trades, or else you have no trade.
Yes.
So that's why, like I said, I started as an actor.
As an actor.
I'm a director, a script writer,
Writer.
screenwriter. You must be able to dabble your hands into all of this, or else you might not have where
How to survive.
How to survive.
So to speak.
Yes, so to speak. Yes, very right. So writing out at stage gives one the experience first and foremost. Because we always say the stage is the king. If you want to be a very good actor or whatever, if you start out from the stage as a stage actor, there's always a difference when you see a stage actor and someone who's just a screen actor. Their delivery, the way they express themselves, their nuances, totally different.
Yeah.
So being embedded in stage rights in the first instance, where you don't have to use, elaborate effects to achieve, so many things, your thinking is actually deep because you have to portray, scenes, visually, right there on paper and be executed, and the audience must believe it.
Yes.
Do you get it? You're not relying on effects and effects
effects.
and effects.
So the economy of words.
Yes. So by the time you start out as a stage writer, it's always easier for you to just, write for screen and then for, yes, it's always easier. So that's my thinking. So I think the stage gave me a jump start, as it were.
Like a very credible background.
Yes, background. Yes.
So to speak. So, as someone who, at least I would say, experienced it all, from stage to TV to screen, and not just as a writer, but as an actor. Because again, I know that the delivery, the elocution, and this training required of someone to perform on stage kind of gives you the preparation you talked about. But what eventually motivated you, at least to write for the big screen, when you left the university?
Oh, well, can we talk about money?
Yeah.
Like I said,
so does it pay more?
Yes, it actually pays more when you write for screen. However, I must say that in Nigeria, that may not be the case if you don't belong to what we call caucuses now.
Yeah.
Yes. I remember that when we began in those days, right, because you are educated, some people can't even touch you for you to come and write for them.
Why?
You get it? Because they believe you are expensive. They haven't even come to you, but the mere fact that you are a graduate already precludes you. And this one will charge us. So that was why at the beginning of Nollywood, the scripts that first emerged, those early scripts, you will count the number of them that really had substance. Because the people who started Nollywood were business people, were businessmen. They were the Igbo traders. And what they wanted was their money. They wanted to recoup the monies that they was, spending on buying the VCDs. Their mindset was they wanted to sell their VCDs, their VHS cassettes. Actually, their VHS cassettes, and therefore any story would go as once as the VHS will get sold. So now having someone who will now take too much money just because they want to put something on VHS was not their own cup of tea. So that was why we ended up being relegated to the television. Why, when Hollywood began, we were writing TV because the TV needed real stories. Yes, they wanted real substance.
But then they couldn't pay a lot.
Yes, the TV does not pay a lot.
Yeah.
But if you got a sponsor
Okay.
on a program, then you get remunerated.
Yeah.
You get really remunerated.
Yeah.
So people began to write for TV and pray to get sponsors. I remember that our own first production, To Catch a Fox, which was one of the Lefmania stories, was sponsored by our now president, Bola Tinubu,
Bola Tinubu.
although he did not even know that he did it. But we got through to him through a friend, and he gave us then, way back in 1991, I think, we got 10,000 naira way
was a
back
lot
in
of money.
1991.
Yeah.
And 1991 was, I mean, that money was huge, 10,000 naira. Yeah. That was what we used to start our first TV production. So, like I said, if you got people like that, to sponsor you, then you get this you're satisfied that first and foremost, your story is being told, and you are not being forced to write a wishy-washy thing just because you want to put it on air, So that is it. So when I say we now, people in my category, yes, ended up in the TV first and foremost, because Nollywood was a preclusion, was a special preserve of the Igbo trader then. Of course, the Yoruba people who were in Nollywood, early Nollywood Yoruba, were the traveling theater people who had their own stories. They were only retelling most of these stories that they had done on stage.
On film.
Yes, and now putting on film. So that's why. So we couldn't write for them because they had their stories. They had their stories. They were just retelling the stories, and so we ended up being TV script writers.
Yeah. So could that be responsible again? The history, or the fact that these, some set of traders saw it as business, so to speak, and then the Yoruba traveling theater, they already had their own stock, stories, which were meant for the stage principally. Could that be responsible for the initial weaknesses we found, at the script level in some of the early Nollywood movies?
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. You see, because the Yoruba people had the Yoruba performers had their stories. They were only adapting those stories to screen. And because, remember, not all of them were educated. Most of them were not, right? And so the transforming those stories to screen became a problem. So even their own type of films, you will see that there were so many technical, issues. When you're watching the story as an educated person who's been to university, you're watching these stories and like, what is this? Oh, what is this? Well, as far as they were concerned, they were getting their stories across. For the Igbo trader, he didn't even mind at all. What he wants is sell my VHS cassette. So any story goes, in the early Igbo films, any story will go. And that was why there was a preponderance of cultism and all of that, right? Cultism was very, very, very prevalent because that was a story that anybody could just think about. Use somebody for money, that's all. And you didn't have to think about the ending. Just send thunder down, thunder and lightning. You kill the bad person, that's all. So the story was very simple. You do something bad, thunder comes and strikes you, bam. Or it's religious in the other way. You do something bad, they pray, and the spirit just catches you. You fall down, you die. That's the end of the story. So it was all about the money, not about the story in the beginning. It was all about the money, not about the story. So real scriptwriters found it hard to infiltrate that market, right? Like I said, you were labeled too expensive because you write too much. I mean, in fact, you just look at your script and say it's too much. It's too much grammar in your script. They want something that. I remember in those days, even the actors they were using were not the trained actors. That was why acting in those days became an all-comers affair. All-comers, because in the early days we had the NANTAP, that is the National Association of Nigerian Theatre Arts Practitioners. That was the very first registered body that regulated theatre practice and film and all of that. So if you are a NANTAP person, of course they don't want to touch you because they believe that you are expensive. And even the NANTAP themselves would not want to go to the Igbo man, to the Igbo setup because how can we go and start people who don't know their left from their right in film? They will now tell you, I want this story. You go put Isakoji, must be there. This person must be there. Even without you, you don't have a choice. You don't have a choice of story. You don't have a choice of directing. You don't have a choice in even picking your actors. Everything is dictated to you. And therefore, writing a story for such a set of people became very, very difficult. So they ended up anybody just writes a story. And to their own advantage then, they didn't even need a script. They only wanted synopsis.
Yeah,
Why would we want to have a finished product of a script? They didn't need that.
actually, that's what I wanted to say because I know that in the
Yes.
Yoruba traveling theater, there wasn't actual scripts.
Yeah.
What they had then was improvisation.
Yes.
And then there was the way then in which that was carried over
To the film.
to the film.
Yes.
So what kind of effect does that have on the script writer? So were there positive script writers because of that? Because everybody wanted to just, make money and then there wasn't the
Yes.
opportunity?
That's why I said the script writer it was very difficult for the script writer to infiltrate into the market because the market itself had its own scripts, had its own stories, So you coming with a well-written script and all of that was like a deviation. It would spoil the rhythm of what they're used to.
They used to.
So they've been used to just having a story. In fact, sometimes when you're invited to go to a Yoruba film location, even the producer does not even have a story yet. He's relying on the actor he has invited. He invites 5 or 6, well-grounded, actors and actresses to come. It's when they get on stage, just say, Sherry, story Timoni Lori. That is, he has not even put it down. I have this story in my head, he looks at you and says, Sherry, how you used to do in that, you now mentions 1 or 2 films that you've done earlier.
Yeah.
So bring that character into this one. You two will now, you don't see Sherry. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like they just bring these actors together and somehow a script emerges.
And so that led to maybe that's what was responsible for the stock characters
Yes.
they created. People associated with certain
them.
roles.
So they were stuck. Still, some are still stuck till tomorrow, right? Because their names are still their names till tomorrow. Babawande is Babawande, although he tries to give him another name in this film.
Yeah.
But even the audience does not see him as that other character. They see him still as Babawande. So and if he plays a character that is not Babawande-ish, to the audience, the character is not yet
good enough.
It's not good enough. Yeah, it's not good enough. You must be Babawande from now till next year, and till thy kingdom come. So they themselves realized this, and therefore they didn't want to go out, of their comfort zone, and that's why most films began to lose, their elements. Began to look very boring because you see Adekola in this film, he's the one in the next film. You see this guy in this film, he's the one in the next film, but like I said, it was all about commerce. So long as the VHS or VCDs got sold, Idumota was making good sales. Kayode Street was making good sales. Eweka Street in Yaba was making good sales. We are the ones criticizing what they were doing, but the market wasn't criticizing it.
But then, has there been an improvement given the advent of, these commercially viable screening channels? Netflix, Prime.
Yes.
What would you say about the quality of, the output of script in terms of script writing?
In terms of script writing, now there are script writers. Now there are good scripts. The problem now is because of the stockness of some of these actors and actresses, these scripts don't get played out well. You get it? Now we have scripts that really, boggle the mind, interest people. But then at a point they say, people don't see the blame on the actor. They don't see the blame in the script. Like earlier when they say this script is just washy and all of that. Now they see a good script, but they now see the bad
interpretation.
Yes, it's now bad. Right. So the scripts are now there. Like you said, because of this new horizon that is now out there. and you want to make your film and you want to make your story to be competitive. There's Netflix, there's all these big channels, and you want to put your story there. And of course, if you don't meet a certain standard, you don't get your script doesn't get screened.
Yeah.
Yes. Therefore, there's this attempt now at having good scripts, but the problem now is not in the script, but in terms of the interpretation of the scripts and the technical know-how in the interpretation. Because sometimes in the course to make a script look fantabulous, they now put so many crazy effects that makes the film crazy at the end of the day. Because sometimes the effects being added to the story, you sometimes kill the story. And therefore I think it's not the story, it's not the script now that has the problem, but the interpretation.
The interpretation. Yeah, I mean, again, I think one of the weaknesses that I have observed, and a lot of people have complained about in most Nollywood, and I mean, I want to know your opinion as a scriptwriter professional, is the fact that a lot of scripts have stories but no plots, where you have, as it were, a story without a plot, and then the fact is boring. So, what do you think?
I
about that?
I have been on a set before where I had a script. I was asked to write a script, and because sometimes I want to watch when such script is being done, and I was there on the location. Right in front of me, this actor comes and says, tells the director, that's he doesn't like the way they have written that his character. And he now suggests to the director that he wants it played this way.
This way.
That other actor comes and says, this is my role, I want it done this way. And because these actors are the grade A actors who have been forced on the director by the producer, they have no choice but to dance to the tune of those actors. So what you have is a script written for production, but rewritten, not even by the director now, but by the actors. An actor is supposed to enter into a gully, for instance, to hide. But because the clothes he's wearing on set is his own, he tells the director, sorry, I know, I can't use this cloth to enter you didn't provide my costume. And I don't want this thing to tear. You now say, okay, just hide, just do like this, just crouch like this.
Yeah, that changes the whole
It changes the whole thing.
Yeah.
You get it? So the script now looks stupid. Because how would you write? I mean, common sense is this person is trying to hide. How would you hide in plain sight by just crouching? Do you get it?
Yes.
So sometimes you now want to think it's the script that is that stupid. Actually, it's a function of so many things. The actor, the producer, and the director who can't stand his ground and says, no, this is how it ought to be played. You get it? So sometimes there are good scripts and sometimes there are bad scripts. I shouldn't say that sometimes there are no bad scripts. There are some scripts, like you said now, that have no plots.
Yeah.
Because when this thing now began, when this Nollywood thing now started, and people now realize that, okay, we need scripts. Because you can't go to the professional script writer to have the scripts written. Anybody sits down in his house and writes something and calls it a script. Once it is cheap, and once that script you acquire is cheap, that's number one. And the producer believes that once you can get Ramsey Noah to act the part, you can get Ngozi to act the wife, that script will sell. Look at it. Not realizing that it's not only the faces that make a story. The plot. What is the plot of the story?
The story, yeah.
And there were no plots because these people writing were not writers. But the real writers did not have a leeway into this thing. Yeah. Not until the advent of when we now start having gone, the scriptwriters guilds and all of that. And there are some laws now that said you couldn't write if you're not part of this association or not part of that association. That the producers now began to realize that, okay, maybe we have to listen to these people and all of that. And of course, again, because of the fact that they wanted to be put on this big airway, I mean, in the broadcast
Screening,
screens, yes.
yeah.
So now they began to realize, okay, maybe we need some good scripts that will help us make our money back. And so these plots again, this plot that we talk about, because the writer, because this writer is our Nigeria situation is we're so religious, so religious, very, very religious. Sometimes as a writer, you know that this is how this story should end. But because you are leaning on religion now, that religion says no to some things, you can't even write that story conclusively because you are now afraid that the society will not buy
Okay.
the story,
story.
because it's now going against some principles or precepts of certain religions. So the writer is now boxed again. Some stories can't be conclusive because of religious perceptions. That's another problem. So that one is there. They also have that, okay, because these stories, because these stories being told are stories that are not theirs. You got to a point that if you watch some films, you realize that these are rehashes of Indian films.
Yes.
It got to a point that so many stories were rehashes. And because they wanted to make the rehash seem different, they would change some things. And while changing some of those things, ideas there, they
Disrupt
get
some
lost.
equilibrium, yeah.
Yes, it destroys, and they don't know how to end it. Of course, like I said, they go back to the thunder, the lightning of the Bible.